What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm Ben, and today I'm going to share my thoughts and experiences with the Carplay unit that I've got on the XR650L here. This is the Carpuride W702. Essentially, it's a 7-inch HD screen that you can mount to your motorcycle, four-wheeler, snowmobile, lawnmower, I guess, if you really want. You just need a powered connection from either a 12-volt battery or from a 2.5 amp or up 5-volt USB connection, which does actually tend to be a little bit higher than I think most of the USB connections that I've got laying around here. Either way, fairly easy to install. You can clamp it right to a set of handlebars, or if you are doing a more seamless style build like I am here, there's quite a few options and ways to mount something like this. I mounted it to the backside of this Hemisphere Off-Road Rally Dash. And while I didn't really intend this to be a long-term solution on this bike because I'm going to be relocating the battery eventually, I didn't want to run any wires to the old lead-acid battery in its current location. So I just have been running this off of a power bank inside of my tank bag here. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend that as a long-term solution. However, it does seem like it works, and I get anywhere from 3 to 4 hours out of the couple different power packs that I've been using. I can put links for those down in the description. I will also have an affiliate link to this unit itself. If you guys use those links, it doesn't cost you anything extra. It just allows me to continue making videos like this. Thank you to you guys that have been using those. And sort of along that same track, this unit was sent to me to test. Prior to this, I had been doing the absolute cheapest method of navigation. Okay, I guess the cheapest would be a compass, but the next step up from an analog compass, I had been using old used Garmin Nuvi GPSs that are really intended to be inside of a vehicle. Since I had been picking several of them up off of eBay over the last couple of years for anywhere from $20 to $60 depending on the size, I really just was never too concerned about them being wet, broken, stolen. It really just didn't matter at that price point. However, there's only so much you can do with a GPS that's really meant to be inside of a car and not really meant for off-road travel. However, with the VV mapping chip that I've been using, I had lots and lots of good land and trail information for Wisconsin and a few of the neighboring states. At the end, I'll tell you whether or not I think it's worth purchasing something like this that instead of being $20 to $60 is, well, almost $300. So let's get into the specs and features and see if it's worth it for you guys. So now, without a phone connected to this, there isn't a whole lot that you can do unless you've got a movie or music or something on your SD card that you have plugged in here. I have not actually felt the need to put an SD card in here. Everything that I need to cast on this does just come from my phone. And that is essentially the way that you're going to get any of your navigation or any of your communication out of this thing. If you guys have ever been in a vehicle that has Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, it's essentially the same exact thing, or at least a very close functionality to that. Now, because I have had some experience with CarPlay in the past in my wife's vehicle, I would say that this is pretty intuitive and easy to use. I never really found myself confused or lost or searching for something within the unit's functionality itself. But I think if this is something that is completely brand new to you, it might take a little bit of time to get it figured out. So I would definitely recommend spending some time in your garage with this thing before you head out on the road. But I think if you do that, it is really pretty easy to use. As far as this display goes, it really looks pretty nice. It definitely has a good feel to it. The brightness is turned all the way up on here right now. I have never had an issue out in broad day sunlight with this. It can be a little bit hard to see if you're running something like Google Maps with the satellite view on, but really in person it looks honestly a lot better than it does on camera. I do have this sort of tilted in a way that it doesn't project the sunlight back at me so much, so I would highly recommend that, of course. But with all that in mind, I would say this does probably a better job than any of the Garmin Nuvi GPSs that I've been using, because this thing is essentially meant to be on a motorcycle. So not only is it waterproof, but it's also going to be meant to be in broad day sunlight, where, like I said, those Garmin Nuvis just, well, really aren't. Now, this W702 model here is 7 inches measured diagonally across the screen. And to give you guys some perspective, this is one of the old GPSs that I use. This is a Garmin Nuvi 50LM. So this is 5 inches measured diagonally here. And this is the largest Garmin Nuvi unit that I use. This is a 60 LM, so that is 6 inches measured diagonally. And it really is pretty close in size, honestly, but still nothing in comparison to this giant 7-inch screen. And the last time that I was out riding with this bike, I was navigating alongside my dad, who has a Garmin Nuvi 40 LM on his bike, which is even smaller than the 50. And I've got to say, it really did make me appreciate this nice big screen. Now, like I mentioned earlier, with these Garmin units, they're pretty bare bones. Really, all they're gonna do is show you and sort of tell you where to go. Obviously, it's a little bit hard to hear the pretty small speaker in the backside of this with a motorcycle helmet on, which is why it's really nice that one of these units can actually connect to a Bluetooth headset in a helmet, if that's something you guys run. It really does seem like a nice, helpful thing. You can actually control your music and your navigation from this screen and play it over your headset. There are some sort of quirky aspects to that, like when you go to try to pause the music on the Bluetooth communicator, at least the one that I've got anyways, it will pause the music, but then you can't play it again because you're running all of that information through the CarPlay unit. But even with that in mind, I would say it still works much, much better and much more seamlessly than trying to navigate on one of these where you have to be looking at the screen. And as much as it is nice to have the screen as close to the highest point on the bike as you can get it, so you don't have to look so far down to take your eyes off of the road, it still is obviously much better to not have to look at the screen at all if you can get that navigation right through your ears instead. But even beyond that, the navigation options on something like this are almost endless, where the Garmin's, you're pretty much stuck with the original information that they put on here. Aside from the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, you can stick a micro SD card in here and get some sort of information for your local trails and that sort of thing, if there is something like that out there. Whereas a CarPlay unit like this, you can basically cast whatever you want from your cell phone onto the screen, whether it be a just simple thing like Google Maps, which is kind of nice for the satellite information and also for the traffic information if you ride in heavily populated areas. I found off-road, it's not really the greatest resource. However, there are lots of different options out there. The last adventure that I took this bike on, I tried out the Gaia GPS app, and it really does have some nice functionality. The screen is, well, a little bit harder to see than the maps that are shown on the Garmin units, but I've got to say, with the large screen on here, it really seemed to work just fine for my eyes anyway. One thing that I have really come to like about the CarPlay unit is the fact that everything loads much, much quicker, both when you're sort of scooting around the map, but also when you're zooming in and out. It's just a much quicker, more smartphone-ish style response time, where on the Garmin, things definitely are a bit on the slow side, especially zooming in and out. Things really just take a long time, and while you certainly can get the job done, it can be a bit frustrating. While there is an option to turn on tracking functionality on a Garmin GPS like this, it's nothing like the Gaia GPS app here. Not only will this show me where I've been on a ride, but I can also get information on my phone that will show me the elevation changes, as well as a whole slew of other information. I'm told that there is a way to set up a route that you can have it cast and follow on here. When I was using it, I wasn't actually navigating. I was just sort of following some of the woods trails that it showed me, and it does show a lot of great information, like trails that don't seem like they appear on Google Maps. Some of them did seem to show up on my dad's Garmin when we were out, but I think there are definitely other places and situations where that information would not be available. I really liked that it was showing me the county land borders, which is super important for us because if it's in green and we know it's county land, we know that we can ride our bikes on it. Obviously that could change depending on the area that you're in, but here in central and northern Wisconsin, it seems like there's enough information on there that I wouldn't feel the need to pay for something else in addition. There are options that you can purchase in the Gaia GPS app. You can also get stuff like Onyx Off-Road that will cast to a screen like this. There are certain apps like the Polaris app, which I really wish would transfer onto a screen like this. As of right now, they don't have the functionality built in, but I would assume that as the years go on, app developers and companies are going to develop more and more digital products for things like this, which is only going to improve their functionality and help us. One thing I will say about navigating with this and the Gaia GPS app way out in the middle of nowhere is that it did seem like my phone was running a bit hot.
This thing's like a hand warmer.
Probably not so great for it.
No.
Bet a lot of that is the fact that it's searching for signals so hard out here. It actually seems like it doesn't even have it, which it's nice that this is still working then.
This isn't something that really should be a surprise. Anytime you're putting sort of a taxing load on a piece of electrical equipment, it's gonna heat up. That's why computers have fans in them. A cell phone, well, obviously it doesn't really have much to cool itself down. Being in my pocket, it did get to a point where it seemed like it was probably pretty close to being ready to shut down, but it didn't. It seemed like it worked just fine. By the end, it had drained my little Tusk jump pack here all the way down to the point that it wouldn't turn on anymore. For that type of ride, though, really wasn't a big deal. I don't think if you're going to be out for any longer than a couple hours, I would, of course, suggest running this directly to your battery. Not to a power bank like this, but it did work. I do really like the fact that you can split the screen between navigation and music. That is definitely kind of cool. You also can have it show you all of the different notifications that you would get on your phone. However, I would definitely encourage you guys to consider turning that stuff off. One, for just plain old safety. The more you can keep your eyes on the road and the less you can put your eyes and your mind on anything else, the safer you're gonna be out on a motorcycle. It's also just nice to be out there to take in the scenery rather than to be worrying about notifications coming in from work or friends or social media sites. It's just not what your mind and what your experience should be geared towards when you're in the saddle. You should be enjoying the ride, not looking at this. It's just good to get the only information that you need on here and absolutely nothing else, or at least that's how I feel about it anyways. It is cool that it has the functionality, and it's good to know that it's there, but it's also, I think, good to know that you can turn it off. Now, while I have had this thing out on a couple of adventures, I would say that knowing whether or not it's really gonna last or whether it's worth the rather hefty price tag would take a bit more experience and a bit more abuse. This XR650L is definitely a thumper and does put out some kind of nasty vibrations, but it doesn't seem like it's really bothered the CarPlay unit at all. I've also sprayed it with, not a pressure washer, but some pressurized water, and it seems to be working just fine. There's nothing about this that would make me concerned. However, being a piece of electrical equipment that's gonna be in the sun, the wind, the rain, it is something that I think does require a bit more long-term testing. I will be leaving this on this bike and I will be riding this bike, but being that I've got 4 different bikes to ride and actually a couple more of these units coming in to test, I just can't really put in the time. So that's why I really would appreciate any of you guys that have had experiences, long-term experiences with these, if you let us know down in the comments how you have been liking yours. As far as whether I think it's worth the upgrade from something like this that cost me only about 60 bucks, I think it really depends on what you guys are expecting from a GPS. If you just need a screen to sort of show you where to go, to show you some trail information, if that is something that's available in your area, I think there is nothing really that can beat this. At 60 bucks, especially for something like this that literally cost me $20, it's just kind of nice to not have to worry about. It's nice to not have to have your phone connected to it. It's not gonna give you traffic information or be able to connect to your Bluetooth headset, but it really just is hard to beat. However, if you're looking for something more than this, if you have an app or are planning a route on your phone, there really is some nice things about having the information on your phone being cast to the screen here. You can sit wherever you are with your phone in hand and plan the route, and then just come down, hop on the bike, have it connected, and everything that you've done on your phone is here. Where something like this, you've got to bring up, possibly plug into a computer. It's not really the greatest for dropping a bunch of waypoints. They definitely work, but I can see where for this certain type of person, this is something that would be necessary. Obviously, that's something that you guys are gonna have to decide for yourselves, but if you are looking for more, I would say these things are super cool. They definitely come with some quirks and some things that you have to work out. Again, downloading the apps, getting the right information onto the screen, finding an app that will work. I think it definitely is worth it, but again, only if it's something that you guys are interested in and this is something that you feel like is worth the investment. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. I hope this was helpful to you. Again, if it was and you want to help out the channel, there will be links for this down in the description. If you just want to check current pricing, there'll be a link down in the description. I'll also pin a comment to the top of the comment section with a link to this, as well as some of the other channel sponsors' affiliate links. So if you guys use those links, again, it would really help me out. It definitely helps me to continue making videos like this. And if you guys find them helpful, I definitely would appreciate if you would take the time to use those. Huge thanks to anybody that has been. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Stay safe. Stay swanky. Get out. Enjoy this beautiful world any chance you get.